Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for listening. My name is Nelson Brown, and this is The Beauty in Us radio right here on Awesome God Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Um, I I wanted to start tonight's broadcast off by first saying that I appreciate all of you and your outpouring love, encouragement, and support from this past week. Just in case some of you may be new to this. Um, I'm still struggling with the loss of my father. My dad passed away on the 23rd of January, and I'm still in the grieving process. I'm still trying to hang in there. I'm doing my best to hang in there. I've gotten a lot of support from you guys. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in every single week. The Beauty in Us Radio is entering into its fourth month on air. And in tonight's broadcast, before we begin, I just want to thank the Vaughn Green Funeral Services for their patience, their persistence, and just their tenderness during our time of need. And my family members and I really appreciate you guys, Vaughn Green, for all of the work that you've done, for my dad. So I definitely appreciate you, and my family does as well. So we've all been grieving. We've all been going through a mixed level of emotions, and we've all been struggling with the grieving process. And tonight, for tonight's broadcast, I was actually going to kick off Black History Month with some of the themes that I planned for this evening, but I'm going to take a little take a little detour, and I'm going to take some time and devote this broadcast to my dad, and I just want to celebrate his life. I'm going to use this broadcast this evening to celebrate his life. So we have our very own Mr. Antoine Jefferson, the CEO and founder of Awesome God Radio, here with us tonight. So he will be joining us momentarily. But in the meantime, I will definitely be giving you guys some of the content that I'm going to be sharing this evening. So we're going to be talking about Black Dads Matter. So that was the hashtag that I created for tonight's broadcast. And that was the hashtag that I wanted to use to describe the topics that him and I are going to talk about tonight, which is about father figures, dads, and the importance of male leadership and male mentorship and other things of that nature. So I wanted to give you guys just a snippet of what we were going to talk about with a little poem that I put together, and I actually have two poems. I have one from a published author, and I have one from my own book, The Beauty in Us, Vulnerable Masculinity, which is still available on Amazon in a paperback and ebook format if you want to check it out. But I'm going to start off by reading this poem. It was written and published on June 15th of last year. It's published and written by a gentleman named Tim Holtz, and he says, "I love being your dad because you make me feel that I've done at least one thing right. I love being your dad because at the end of a trying day, I know I'll receive at least one warm hug goodnight. I love being your dad every day that goes by because I get to watch you succeed by giving everything a try. I love being your dad as I watch you grow. Often you bring tears to my eyes, but I never let you know. I love being your dad while I worry about if you're safe, happy, and well, even when you think I'm mad because I had to yell. I love being your dad because together we make a great team. I check with you every morning asking, what did you dream? Today is your birthday. We measured your growing height. I smiled as we did it, hoping I'm doing the dad thing right. I love being your dad because no matter if I'm gone away, you're in my heart every second of every day. God has blessed me with you, and for that, I'll always be happy. I'm sorry if this poem has your old dad sounding sappy." So that's a poem, again, that's written by an author named Tim Holtz. It's called I Love Being Your Dad, so you can do your research on that poem. And it's supposed to talk about a dad's love for his son. And he also, and Mr. Holt actually wrote this poem for his own son on his 9th birthday. I did a little background research, and I figured that it was imperative for our discussion tonight. And he just wanted to let his son know how much he loved him with the poem that he composed for him. So I did have other poems at my disposal. So I have a copy of my book, The Beauty in Us, Vulnerable Masculinity, which is still available in a paperback and ebook format on Amazon if anyone wants to purchase it. And it was released almost a year ago. It was released in February on the 12th, from my understanding, last year. So one poem, it's a little different from the poem I just read to you all, but it still ties into tonight's discussion in terms of how we as a community can take on the responsibility of being great mentors, especially men, for young men and for boys in our communities, in our schools, and throughout our neighborhoods that we live in. So just this is a poem that I wrote for The Beauty in Us, Vulnerable Masculinity. It's a book of poetry. And this one is called Dear Absent Fathers in This Village, and it ties into tonight's discussion as well. It says, Dear absent fathers in this village, some boys spend long nights beating themselves up about you not being present at home. Some boys are having suicidal thoughts because of their issues at school and because your shoulder isn't there to cry on, so little boys feel isolated and all alone. A hug and an I love you is all sons want to hear, all that they wish. Your money and materialistic items don't replace love for your sons. It is something they won't miss. It's time for you to take your place as humble leaders in this community. Some of your sons feel lost and don't understand the true meaning of masculinity. Some of your sons don't know how to define their place in the society. Dear absent fathers in this village, your wives are more important than that liquor bottle you turn to in order to escape from stress. Your baby boys are more important than that drug addiction you know you need to put to rest. Your sons at heart want you to be their superhero, but as a workaholic, you miss every event they have, from a sports game to a talent show. As a workaholic, your nerves live in constant fear, and your heart beats with anxiety. Pretty mansions and slick cars don't measure up to your true wealth or prosperity. However, a loving family and supportive friends is what does. Dear absent fathers in this village, you are born with genius and ability, but it all starts with commitment, perseverance, hard work, and financial stability. You are gifts from the Lord Almighty. Now, that is a poem from the second installment of my book. Like I said, it's called The Beauty in Us, Vulnerable Masculinity, and it's still available in a paperback and ebook format, just in case you want to purchase a copy for your loved ones. I know that we're kind of snowed in today. I spent the majority of my day, shoveling snow today. Well, the majority of my afternoon, I should say, shoveling snow. So I know we're all kind of snowed in, and everybody's still working from home, and everybody is still in the virtual environment, especially a lot of our young people like myself. We're still in school. We're still learning from home. So this is a great opportunity for everyone to sit down and have a conversation about what we are going to unpack tonight. And it's also an opportunity for everyone to pick up a good book and to read it during their spare time and during their leisure time. So I just want to first start off by asking you all what you think male mentorship is, because I know that has different meanings to different people, and I know that sometimes we have a difficult way of mentoring our youth in terms of just helping them navigate through all of the struggles that they've experienced growing up, and even with what the young people like myself are going through nowadays in terms of trying to find their place in this world, trying to figure out where they fit in and where they belong. I mean, we're so pressured to be perfect, and we're so pressured to be what other people want us to be, but a lot of times young people feel as though their voices aren't heard as often as they should be. So I just want to first ask you guys what you think male mentorship is. And I'm definitely speaking to the gentlemen, but I'm also speaking to the ladies. What do you think male mentorship is? What is your definition of male leadership? Because I know that, especially, in recent years, I've done a lot of praying, and I've had time to just really reevaluate, um, just, the people in my life. And I just look at the circumstances I'm currently in. As you guys know, that, I lost my job back in September. So I'm still trying to rebuild and refocus, and I'm still in the process of figuring out what to do next. So there's a lot of ongoing uncertainty. And on top of that, I struggled with my own health related issues in the past few months. And just being able to take care of my other responsibilities with school and other things that young adults do. It's really been challenging for me. And on top of that, like I shared before, passing of my father, it's an unexpected event. So I've just been really, really struggling with these thoughts. I've been really, really struggling with just trying to stay prayerful and trying to keep it all together. I know that, I have another therapy session this week on Thursday. So I know that me being in therapy definitely helps me unpack a lot of the issues that I've struggled with in the past. Being in therapy gives me an opportunity to vent. Being in therapy gives me an opportunity to voice my thoughts, my opinions, my ideas to someone that I know who cares, and someone who I know won't judge me for it. So again, I just want to ask you guys, what do you think the definition of male leadership is? Because I know, and I'm starting to learn, especially in recent years, that, male leadership, male mentorship, father figures doesn't have to come from a biological father. I know that a lot of us have godfathers, uncles, pastors, and I'm speaking on behalf of men, but females need mentors too. But I'm speaking on behalf of men to tie into tonight's subject. I know that, uncles, godfathers, pastors, ministers, coaches, and there are so many other people that can act as a great male role model and father figure to, young men and boys that may feel lost and may feel like, they are vulnerable in a world that can be deemed as dangerous by some people. So I just want to ask you guys, what do you think the definition of male mentorship is? Because I know that everybody is being led by someone, and everyone is leading someone. And I'll say that again. Everybody is being led by someone, and everybody is leading someone. So when we talk about leaders, and when we look at the national spotlight, and when we look at our leaders, when we pick our leaders, and even when we look at our workforce, our place of employment, where we work, we know that we have people in positions of leadership. So I just want to ask you guys what you think leadership is, because leadership is not, from my point of view, about titles, and it's not about using a position to be mean and nasty towards others. I know that being a leader is about uplifting others. It's about helping people get to where they want to be. And it's also about, as a leader, it's also about you, focusing on that young man or that young woman's potential, and molding them and helping them shape them, to shape them, into who they want to be, into the person they want to be. I know that that's really, really important when it comes down to just being a role model for someone. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. Like, I know that I've spent, over 4 months, pouring my heart out on this platform. I've been blessed with the opportunity to establish myself, not just as a radio personality and not just as an award-winning author, but as a leader in my community. I mean, I know that I take that very seriously, and sometimes I can beat myself up for it because I feel like I should have all of the answers to everything. But, as a mentor and as a leader, it's also important to gain feedback from others. because we are not perfect. I know that, I'm not a perfect leader because I'm not a perfect man. But I think it's also imperative for all of us to listen. You know, I do my best to listen and to learn because I honestly believe that you cannot lead anyone unless you listen and learn from them. I also believe that it's important to be coachable, especially when you want to go somewhere in terms of you trying to get to where you want to be. It's imperative for you to listen and to learn from the people who may experience what you've experienced, so that you won't have to endure a lot of the same struggles. You won't have to endure um, what they may have gone through, the pain and the anguish that they may have gone through. And this can be spoken about from a professional standpoint and even a personal standpoint, because I mean, you never know who's watching, and you never know who is, who you never know where you'll end up, you know, in, in your life. Um, and again, I'm speaking to dads. There was a point in time where I know that I struggled with self-esteem issues, and a lot of my abandonment issues stemmed from some of the things that I shared on this platform about the estranged relationship that I had, not just with one male mentor or one person, one man in a leadership position that I trusted, but um, my self-esteem issues stemmed from how I felt about myself growing up. Um, I didn't think that I was worthy of things. I was always really reluctant about going after what I wanted. I thought that my physical appearance was it was something that everybody else cared about. I struggled with weight-related issues, and I also had a really difficult time developing a healthier self-image. And when we talk about self-esteem, and when we talk about that, um, it's something that everybody goes through and everybody experiences. So, with that being said, I'm going to dive right in because I see him waiting. So I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. I'm sure you guys already know, but this is to my new listeners because I know I do have some people who are new to this broadcast. Um, let's see. Hello.
Hey, sir, how are you doing today?
How are you? Thank you again for jumping on. I was just
No problem, man.
I was just uh, giving a little introduction into tonight's discussion about, we're going to be talking about dads, father figures, and what it means to be a great male mentor. And again, like I said, this broadcast is dedicated to the celebration of my dad's life. So
Yes, sir.
this is something that I wanted to do. This was also something that I thought about last minute because I wanted to do something that was tied into Black History Month this week, but I decided to switch gears and to use this instead. So I do know that you gave your first initial sermon, a couple of
Yes,
weeks ago as a newly ordained minister. So
yes, sir.
I know, and I know that male mentorship and male leadership is something that you're really, really passionate about,
Yes,
not
sir.
just as the CEO and founder of this station, but with everything that you do and with everything that you practice, and with
Yes, sir.
and also amongst everyone you work with. So could you introduce yourself and tell the listeners why that's so important to you and why that's imperative for your journey, as a leader in your community?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so very much, man, for having me. I got to know Nelson a lot better in this past couple of weeks. I've known you, but I've gotten to know you a lot better in these couple of weeks, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. But what I want to say, man, is that I have not yet been ordained. However, it's okay, it's all right, and I know many people will call me reverend and elder, and it's just ministry. But protocol says that God has allowed me to take the first step in ministry to have a license to preach. I'm able to preach. And what that means is all protocol into ministry, and those who know. But the most important thing is that doesn't matter what your title is or what you do or who you are, but that we're really connecting with people and that we're showing them the love that Jesus extended to all of us. So I'm AJ. I have the privilege, the honor to lead Awesome God Radio. Awesome God Radio is birthed out of a show, out of the vision that God has given myself and my partner Geelong, and some discussions and some things that God was calling me into inspirational radio. Every time I say that, I think about where we began and how things have really changed and how we have become a support of the community, not just by way of radio, through our app, our exclusive app, and on our website, but because of the pandemic and where we are today, how we're able to reach people even through platforms like this, where for years I couldn't figure out how to get somebody connected on the screen who was living in other parts of the DMV, and I couldn't get them on my camera, but how we can talk to them, figured out how to call them and talk to them on the phone, but how can we see them at the same time? And so God's been a blessing to give us this amazing opportunity for so many of us. So AJ, I'm just a brother, a husband to a beautiful wife, Kay Jefferson, amazing children. I am proud to be a member, associate minister of Shiloh Baptist Church, Baltimore County. My bishop, Bishop Heber Brown II. All of that sounds wonderful. I love everybody, all of you. Whoever's on is watching, please share this. And I'm just grateful to be with you, sir, to give me this opportunity to be with you.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that I wanted to jump right into tonight's discussion about dads, father figures, and what it means to be a great male mentor and what the definition of male leadership is. So there was a book that I spoke a little bit about it earlier in the show. There was a book by Common that I read last year. Well, I actually listened to the audiobook. So there was a book about, it was a memoir about himself. It was called Let Love Have the Last Word. And he talks a lot about his position, not just as an entertainer, but as a dad as well. So I just wanted to know, I just wanted to know from your point of view, what does it mean to be a dad, and what does it mean to be a father figure or a male mentor to somebody else who may feel fatherless, and also to little boys who may be struggling with that concept because they may be trying to find their place in a world that expects them to be what they want them to be, or what they may not have been taught to be, and who just young men and boys that may just feel lost. So how would you define that?
When I think about that question, and even before I even share from my perspective of a dad, I think about my own relationship with my father. For those who know me, my dad transitioned, earned his wings, passed away in the December 2019, 2019, which was exactly 20 years from my mom passing in 1999. My dad passed in 2019. Our relationship was forever growing, forever evolving, and it wasn't the perfect relationship. He wasn't the perfect dad, and I certainly wasn't the perfect son. But I loved my father, and he loved me, and that was never in question. Sometimes how relationships, when you think of relationships, especially from a father to a son or a father to a daughter, there are so many things that attribute to us as men growing up that we go through, and they'll never be written in terms of how men have to go through life being a Black man, trying to make it, trying to provide, trying to love, and trying to do the best that they did even as their father raised them, and some of the generational things have come through. So sometimes it's really hard to define how a father or a relationship would be with a child. It's quite unfair, to be honest, because mothers seem to be so strong. They seem to have it. They're guided by love. But men, for some reason, when it comes to broken relationships, we don't always make the right decisions. I purposed as I was growing up with my children and my family that I would do my absolute best to go over and beyond to avoid having broken relationships, because I understood what broken relationships do to not only just the relationships with the child, but to the family dynamic. Just think, if I didn't understand what broken relationships meant, I could have been subject to, having the same with my sons and my daughter. So I think the key to understanding this is that there is a reason in every situation why things become estranged. And the more we begin to ask those questions, well, why did this or why did that? The more we start peeling the onion back to understand how relationships become broken, it gives us better clarity and better understanding as we are to be better for our own children. And so, father first, you said minister, but guess what? I don't believe a minister is a minister until he's taking care of his own. If you are serving in the gospel in the gospel community and you are doing everything you can, you're changing lives, you are, offering salvation, and you are serving God's people, but yet you are okay with having a broken, in some ways, unrepairable relationship with your children. In my heart, in my mind, I think that should always be the first ministry. So it's about prioritizing and realizing that if God has given you the gift of children, and especially for those who you mentioned mentorship, as God gives you the ability to make an impact on other people's lives, I believe that it's important for us to display the same kind of love God has given us. He adopted us into his family. He brought us in. So every relationship matters. So I'll stop there because I can share a whole lot about that. But I think we really have to work to minimize these broken relationships, and where they exist, even as men, with your daughters, with your sons, we got to work to fix them, because I was not expecting my dad to pass at the age that he passed. But before my dad passed, we had a functional, loving, unconditional love for each other. We were doing ministry together. The story did not end in that we were in a bad place. We were in two different worlds. No, my dad passed. We had grown into the relationship that I believe would model for a father and a son.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. When I read Common's book, "Let Love Have the Last Word," one thing that stood out to me, a lot of things that he was sharing, and he was so vulnerable in the book. A lot of things that he shared were things that I would never even think of in terms of how I thought, he grew up. And one thing that he did emphasize in the book is that it's important for us to live beyond our brokenness. And I know that the brokenness can sometimes reappear later on in our lives in some way or another. So I do know that personally, being a dad is something that I question for myself, for my future, because of the estranged relationship that I had with my dad. I felt like I wasn't worthy of having, a wife or kids. I felt like, I'll just focus on my career and make money. I'm good, you know. you know, because I was always confident about myself professionally. Like, if I'm always someone that you count on. If you want to work with, make money with, make if you want connections, if you want to network, I'm your guy. But I always felt like I lacked in that area because my dad was never around. Yes, my mom was around. Yes, everybody gives her credit. I give her credit for everything. But I'm just saying that emptiness was always, inside, with all of my accolades and with everything that I accomplished, it was always that void, until recently, just finding that forgiveness and finding that peace and being at peace is something that I couldn't, I like, it's one of the greatest gifts that I could
Yes,
ever
sir.
ask for.
Yes,
And
sir.
now I feel more confident in a piece of me and part of who I am now. So um,
Yeah.
living beyond the brokenness is something that I feel as though is important, just like Common shared in his
Yeah.
book. So, what age do you think it begins to reappear from a male's point of view? If you don't nip it in the bud and solve any of the underlying issues, what age do you think that reappears most often?
So I'll share in this way. I didn't grow up, even though my dad was living in Maryland and I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, by some amazing grandparents. My grandfather, who's gone to be with the Lord, and my grandmother, Nana, who everyone loves, lives on Stroud Street. Nelson, if you ever find your way to Brooklyn, just give me a call and I'll hook you up with Nana. She'll probably cook for you, do some other things. But I think this might be true for just about everybody. There may be persons that are there to help you, support you, to give you everything that you need to be successful. You mentioned your mom. Your mom gave you so much. She helped you to become a successful young Black man. And by the way, you're going to do well as a husband, as a father, and you are absolutely enough. Just wanted to say that to you if nobody else tells you that. But I think I was in my teenage years, somewhere around 14, 15, when I started to really wanting to have that closer relationship, or I was searching for the fatherly relationship. Think about those years. You're starting to smell yourself, as they say. You're looking at, relationships and companionship. You want to drive, in some ways you want to play basketball. I know that when you're a kid, there are things that maybe mom or the neighbors can help out. But then when you start kind of going from those teenage years into the young adult years, you start to develop a relationship or a personality, I would say, that really is defined by who's in your life, who's correcting you, who is the one that's really helping you to mold you as a man. I can't speak for young ladies, but I can say for me, in that time, I think I really started to desire and yearn to want to have a relationship with my dad. I will say this also. Even if you have a stepfather or uncle, it doesn't matter who's in your life. At some point in your life, you are going to start being curious about your biological father. And even if it's a mom, at some point your heart says, I just want to know my history. I want to know what I come from. I want to know who I come from. So, just kind of expanding the net and everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, whether your dad, mom's still here, or if they transition prior to you getting to that age, you still yearn for a desire to have that relationship with your dad. So,
Yes, and it's something that I speak about often on the show. A couple of weeks ago, I sat down with a gentleman, one of my former classmates named Jordan Davis, and I talked about just that experience, and just both of us talking about it from different angles. It was something that was really, really appreciated by all of the listeners, and again. I do know that repairing broken relationships is really, really imperative because it shows up in your other relationships, with other people. Like we talked about men with mommy issues, so
mhm.
and how that shows up
Yeah.
in their relationships,
Yes,
and
sir.
we talk about being raised, him being raised in a two-parent household, me being raised in a single-parent household, and how we both ended up being really, really successful in the long run. Um, and and I and how important do you feel it is, though it is, because this is something that I struggled with for a long time. Forgiveness, in terms of you being a child growing into a young adult, and you may have some sort of ill will or resentment or bitterness towards your parents for not being there, or may or even if they were there, parents. Um,
Right.
and in our case, fathers and sons. between fathers and sons, being a son being resentful and angry, or even bitter about his father not being as supportive as he wanted him to be, or not being there emotionally, not just financially, but emotionally there.
Emotionally,
And
yeah.
why do you think that's so important? And how do you think, what do you think that looks like if it's not cleaned
Oh,
up?
that's good.
What do you think
Yeah, that's good.
it looks like when it is cleaned up?
That's an excellent question. And the reason why I love that question is because everybody's different. So what happens is it comes out in ways that sometimes we can't identify to say that I became this person. I either did this or didn't do this because of XYZ, right? So I think what happens is that you become a bit, in so many ways, you become clueless until you start to realize, hey, I'm this way because I essentially, I had some hard times with my family, had some hard times with, with my dad. He was there, he helped, he supported, or no. So I became successful in X, so some people take their experiences and they go full speed ahead. And some take those experiences and they say, mom didn't want me, dad didn't want me. I have nobody in my family who really supported me. They go to drugs and alcohol. I mean, there's a whole generation of people in my mom and dad's era who went through crack cocaine because of the issues that they went through. Their parents went through civil rights, and that they were a product to see all of this happen. And now they have to, survive. We now today, we became president, we became vice president, right? But years ago, what was that? How was this country to so many of them that were out there surviving, trying to make it, and how many roadblocks were before them? And so some of those things impacted their feeling of of being sufficient to do the things that you and I can say, hey, there's nothing we can get through. You and I, you're an author, you're writing books, you're expressing yourself. How many people, in your day, your time would take their pain and their suffering, their issues, and essentially turn it into a testimony like that. Your books will be here years after you're gone. The stuff that you have written, people will be reading. It's a legacy piece. You left a legacy. So what I'm saying is essentially, I really believe that everybody responds differently. But if you look at why certain people turn or certain things happen in certain ways, eventually it will all point to some trauma, some sense of detachment, some sense of inadequacy, feeling or emotion of that. It all stems back. And sometimes that stuff comes out in our marriages, they come out in our relationships, they come out in how we deal socially with people, whether we connect with them or we push them to the side. All of these things impact us because in some way, when you look at it, it all stems from you and the first love, your mother, your father, that emotion, and then all of that drives you to who you become as an adult. So the faster we get help, and I'll be honest, people say, oh, just Jesus. No, you need Jesus and a therapist. People are saying it. We need to make it a t-shirt. It needs to be plastered, just like Black Lives Matter. We need to put it everywhere. It should be a billboard that says that we can get therapeutic help as long as someone to help us to balance spiritually, as well as those things that we have a hard time processing. And we just need help to psychologically get through them. Yes, sir.
Yes, I mean, I do know that's it's really, really it's really, really important to heal because it will, it will reappear in some portion of your life if it's not handled appropriately. I do know that a lot of people just they just depend, like you said, on their spirituality alone, and they don't
Exactly.
they don't use all of the resources like counseling and therapy in order to help them unpack a lot of the issues, um,
Yes.
and that God supplies us, and that He uses as a resource to help us. So that is a really really great point to bring up. And like I even like bring it I even think about a lot of the work that I do. Like a lot of people expect me to have all of the answers, and I tell them I don't have all of the answers. I'm still learning on my own. I'm still very emotional about everything.
Yeah.
I'm still learning myself. I don't have all of the answers to everything, and they think, and some people have even asked me, you should mentor little boys, they should be 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. You should do this, you should do that. I mean, they look at me like I have all of the answers, and I told them, I don't even know how to go about it. I mean, it's something that I would be open to, but I don't even know like how I would go about it, or where I would even like find myself in that. It's something that I would love to do because I love children, but it's just not something that I thought would be for me for a long time. But it's something that I have considered recently. So what is your position as a male mentor to someone who may feel fatherless? Like, how do you go about doing that?
There, all of us have a nature that says we want to be loved. We also have a nature in us. Most will disagree with this, but we all want to be corrected too. We want to be loved, but we want to be corrected. Sometimes we want to be corrected in the way we want to be corrected. But the reality is that there is something in all of us that calls for some type of alignment and some type of chipping off the rough edges. We want to be in the palm of people and a God who knows how to handle us no matter what we go through. And so when you think of mentorship and you think of how you support those from my position, you have to really approach every person differently. You have to be very understanding. You have to listen to the heart, the soul, and the experiences of people. Because once you start to kind of make up in your mind and kind of have these preconceived notions about people, you kind of put them in like a cookie cutter kind of situation where, yeah, I know you're kind, so I know what to say and do. But the moment you do that, you take away a person's ability to express themselves differently. And so I think the most important thing we have to do is to really hear the hearts, hear the minds, and the experiences of people. And then sometimes, as you say, I don't care how much you know God, and I don't care how much you know Jesus. Some things you have to submit to prayer. That's why I appreciate having my own relationship. And most of my mentorship is about some things that I would want for others to pursue in terms of their careers and their lives and what they do. Because it's not about what I can say to help them, but it's all about what I can say to take them to someone who I know has the answers to help them and where they are. That's the key. If you can put people in the hands of someone that can change their lives, then you've done your job. And I don't want any credit for the things I do because I myself have gone through the hardships. I've made some very bad mistakes. I've moved fast and didn't know what to do. There have been times in my life, as well as things are going right now, I don't see the well things. I think about what God has brought me through. Because when you think about what He's brought you through, it really does ground you. It keeps you in a place of humility. Thought about this, and I'm thinking and praying as we're sharing. David said, God, please take this thorn from me. Take it. I can't do this. It's in pain. It's afflicted me. And God said, my grace is sufficient. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, well, God, that didn't take the pain. I know you good. I know you're all things and everything's good, but I still have the pain. But essentially what he's saying is, even with your pain, even with the things that you have gone through, I'm still able to help you to get you through. so that with your pain, with your struggles, with the things that you're dealing with, I'm still able to help you overcome them. And by the way, if you introduce someone else like you know me, then you'll help them get through as well.
Yes, and it's really important to use all of the approaches that you just mentioned. You know, when you're trying to minister to someone and when you're trying to act as a mentor, you know, on their behalf, it's really important to learn and listen and learn to other people in order to help them, because sometimes the best support is just being there and just listening, just being a listening ear. Because a lot of people, they want to lead, but they don't want to listen and learn to anything from anybody. So it is really imperative. And you know, in this past week, last week, my aunt, she actually sent me a poem that she received when my grandmother passed away. You know, because she wanted to give me the same support and encouragement and love that was given to her when, you know, her mom passed away, because she of course understands and knows how it feels to lose a parent. And now, by me being very young, it's something that, like, I still can't even wrap my mind around, because I feel like, you know, I'm too young for this. Like, I have so much more to see, so much more to experience. Like, why now? You know. So
Mhm.
I would like to read the poem.
Yes, sir.
So it says, um, it's called "Hold Us Up, Lord," and it's written by a poet named Linda Elrod. And she says, Lord, we know you're always busy, for you've many things to come, but when sorrow overcomes us, well, we need to talk to you, for we've lost someone precious, and they're with you there above. And it's something that we needed, and it's someone we love. We are feeling lost and all alone, though we do believe we need you, Lord, to hold us up, to help us while we grieve. Please give us strength and courage, Lord, to bear what we must bear, and nudge us when our faith is weak, to remind us you are there. Give us hope for our tomorrows. Tell us life will still go on. Show us, Lord, that all this darkness will be followed by the dawn. You have led us through so many things. You've pulled us through before. Hold us up, Lord, till we're through this and we are strong once more. So
Wow.
that's the poem. That's the poem that she gave me, and that was given to her by one of her colleagues. You know,
Wonderful.
at her job at the time. So it is such a wonderful poem, and I called and I thanked her, and she told me about the poem. And she told me about the different stages of the grieving process. And I've grieved before, but it's just a different level when it comes to, you know, grieving for a parent, because just the whole idea of them not being there is something that you can not even fathom. And the fact that I made peace and that I forgave, um, you know, it's something that I feel so, it fills me with so much joy and so much
Wow.
happiness, because I feel complete in who I am. And I didn't leave, you know, and my dad didn't leave this earth on bad terms with me. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
in my heart, and, you know, in his heart. And I feel like by me being in therapy, and by me just doing all of what I can do in order to, you know,
Yes.
be a better person and to be a better man, and to, you know, grow up and not be that broken little boy that I felt like I was for a long time, is something that I feel like I'm doing for him, since, you know, he didn't
Yes,
have
sir.
enough strength to do it within himself. I feel like I'm doing it for the both of us now. So,
Yes, sir.
what advice would you give to someone who may have lost a parent, or people who may be in the position where their parents may be at odds of something, or about something that they don't know how to move through and heal from?
Yes. Um, 2020 has been a year like we've never seen. We've said that so many times. I have seen so many people on my timeline, both in the family chat, at church, a ministry. It seems as though almost every day someone is losing someone close and significant. We never know the time or the hour that God will call us home. But what I would say is that every person and their memories kind of reside in us. We carry them. They are a part of who we are. Your dad, as well as my dad, are their spirits, their personality, even their voices. If you listen hard enough, you'll hear his voice um, echo in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit. We have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to take what they have left us and to really share it in a way through our lens, and especially for those who are in Christ, to share it through the lens of Christ. Christ didn't um, want us to tell a story about those who were struggling. Um, he didn't find it necessary that people, even as we know them, that their stories would define who they are. What he did was he protected those. He hung out with those who most people had the most to talk about. You know, the woman who was caught in the act, he didn't tell them, yeah, y'all did right. Y'all on point. You know, y'all called it out. Let's stone her. It's by the law. It should be. No. Started writing in the sand. He didn't want to deal with it, but they got noisier. They got louder. Oh, she did it, Jesus. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to her? And before he did anything, he asked a question of accountability to every person. He said, one without sin, cast the first stone. Now, you got to know who he's talking about. He's talking about the church, people. These are people who were law makers. You're talking to people who should be extending grace if they knew who Jesus was and if they understood who God was. They probably would have approached her differently. But he himself had to show us that those who are in the faith, and no matter where we are, no matter how much we are close to God, that we should be telling a story about people that speaks to our own accountabilities and finding where we are and where we have went in fault. That's what I want to say to people like you and I who worked out our issues with our parents, mom, dad, especially a father. Work them out. But when we tell the story, we leave a legacy because we see this is what God was doing through him, her. This is what God was doing. Now, because I'm more mature in it, you said it yourself, to carry out some things that he might not have been able to do himself. That's an amazing legacy and responsibility. And I'm so proud of you, man, because I can't tell you what I was doing when I was your age, and I don't want people not to like me or talk about me. They will anyway if I told a story about what I was doing at your age, but I can say that even at your age, I don't know another person in my life is able to carry that kind of load and legacy and accept it and embrace it and carry it with all that you have. Your amazing village, your mom, who I had a privilege to meet, so many of the people who surround you, our Awesome God Radio family. We're here for you, family, and everybody. But I just want you to know that for those who may have lost someone who are sitting in our seats, that God will send angels, people who understand, who are genuine. And I know that sometimes the heart has a hard time allowing people close and in. Fear does that. God says, I'm not giving you a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. He wants us to be whole. So embrace and accept those people, persons who are extending themselves to you so that you can lean on people when you need strength and help. That's what I believe we all need. I know that's what I need.
Yes, that's definitely amazing. And I know that we have a few minutes before the show ends, but um, uh, how can people reach you or get in touch with you to
Yes,
learn
sir.
more about this Awesome God Radio the community that I've had the privilege of being a part of for so long, and when I've established my own platform and radio show on. So how can people reach you or get in touch with you, and just to learn more about your work and about the ministry and what you do for our community?
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, Awesome God Radio is not a station only, it's a community of people. We go by the mantra, we are AGR. Community. I really wanted this community to be a community where people can come and express themselves, create their own platforms so that they can build their brands and that they can speak their truths and they can share from a faith-based perspective the very things God has really called them to be. If you want to reach me, I'm everywhere, AJAG Radio, both Instagram, Twitter. If you search me, Google it, AJAG Radio, and that's AJAG, like Awesome God Radio, RADIO. And certainly you can reach out to Nelson if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or if you're inspired to write a book, or if you are just looking to be a blogger, or you just want to have a segment on somebody's show because you got something amazing happening. We welcome everybody, partners, ministries, churches, everywhere you are. Please reach out, let us know, and we'll certainly take great care of you.
Yes. Yes. So I'm gonna close the listeners out with my word for the evening. But I thank you again for taking time out to come on. I definitely appreciate it. Much love to you and everybody else who's listening. I've had I've met so many people like within this past week, and there are so many other like new faces and new listeners, and which is a good thing. Yes. So I just thank you, and I will definitely be speaking to you, soon and later about everything else that's going on. So I thank you again for
Thank you so much. You have a blessed one, man. Thank you. You take care.